Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with London-based keyboardist, composer, and bandleader Greg Foat. We caught up with him from his beautiful spot of land in England during mid-April 2020 to talk about his latest CD and this new COVID-19 lockdown world of ours. This London-based musician is completely of his own time and somehow beyond it. His highly original, non-contemporary jazz utilizes conventional instruments and an exotic array of unorthodox ones. His story and wisdom is something you need to hear. Dig in. One of the things that I've been trying to do as kind of a function of this lockdown and coronavirus world we're in is really talking to you musicians and to get you guys to kind of get your minds out of this. It helps for everybody. I think it's some maybe tiny cathartic therapeutic session that can happen that, you know, hopefully we can look back on this at some point and say, wow, I never want to go back there, and hopefully humanity won't return to this period ever.
I mean, for me, it's not really a big deal. I'm actually quite enjoying it, if I'm honest. It's nice having clean air, no airplanes. It's nice not having so much traffic. There's no pollution. There's not so many people on the streets. You know, I can walk around when I'm walking the dogs or going, for exercising on the bike and not see a soul. So for me, it's good. I mean, I've got to the point where I like the solitary life. In the countryside. Anyway, I'm from the Isle of Wight originally. So after spending so many years of my life living in different places like Miami, London, Stockholm, Paris, it's fine for me. I'm really quite enjoying it. The weather's lovely.
Well,
I went for a 3-hour walk yesterday.
That's great. I'm so glad, and that's the thing. I'm getting different perspectives from all kinds of humans and people from around the world, and it's great that there's an optimistic view on this. So that's awesome. I do think too that there are some silver linings. I do think there are good things. I mean, in Venice, the water is like as clear as it's ever been. Pollution's clearing up in Beijing. I think that the animals are roaming in a different way. And
the danger is obviously people will voluntarily walk into some dystopian sort of police state, in the future, and want to be all sort of tagged with whatever sort of some microchip to let everyone know that they are virus free, or with the what's the thing called, vaccine, all that sort of stuff. There's all sorts of sort of paranoia out there as well. But I think I've given up worrying about the herd, really, or what happens to the mass. I'm pretty selfish in that sense. I don't really care.
I hear you. I
still get my royalty checks sent through, so, I'm missing out on playing a tour this month, which is a shame. I was going to play Ronnie Scott's and a few other, choice dates, but it is what it is, I bought a new synthesizer. I've got a nice Roland JX AP with the expander box on it, the old PG800. So I'm fixing up sounds, getting ideas for the next recording session. So, it's kind of a creative time, and it's nice. Like I said, I'm not stressed about having to do anything. Everyone else, I'm in a very lucky position compared to most people that, say, rely on gigs for a living. A lot of musician friends of mine are struggling because obviously they're used to working 5 nights a week or whatever, but I haven't done that now for a couple of years. I did a good few years of playing every night a week, but you get burnt out after a while of that, so I don't miss that.
Well, cool. Well, it sounds like this is kind of this is probably a good thing, and I think I'm kind of noticing in little ways for a lot of people that it's that way too. I'm wondering too, just from like people that higher end musicians that have a lot of money that now get to spend time with their families and don't need to worry about money, or even actors and actresses. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people that may not return in full force because maybe this was such a welcoming period in their lives that they're going to be like, I'm good.
Yeah, it's an age thing. I'm 42. I spent the past 20 years hustling. Making music and gigs and working in nightclubs and hotels and doing session work and all that stuff. So, I've done it. I don't need to prove anything. So for me, this is like, it's like being retired right now. I don't mind it at all. Obviously, if the weather's crap, I'm going to get bored. But at the moment, it's been beautiful sunshine, uninterrupted sunshine for, the past month. So, I'm happy to go on beach walks and walk the dogs. And the fishmonger's still, the fisherman down the end of my street, he's still bringing in beautiful fresh fish every morning. And I go there and buy fish, and I cook for me and the family. And I went picking wild garlic earlier today and made like a pasta dish with that. And, it's all good.
Good.
So, well, if we come out this other end and there's like no more honestly, Britain's pretty much fucked anyway with Brexit. Our economy's absolutely going to be screwed over regardless of this lockdown. So we're going to probably see a recession like we haven't seen since the 1930s. So I don't. Again, I'm pretty fortunate to be in the position I'm in. I've got a good body of work behind me now. I think I'm on my 15th album. So if I can stay at home and make fucking new age jazz records or whatever, do private pressings and sell by mail order, that would suit me and become a recluse. Get on with some gardening. Who knows? If the whole world economy just goes to shit, then it's dig for victory, isn't it? Grow your own, And obviously the rest of the world is going to have some. I think India's having some horrendous issues right now, and I know a lot of people that are sort of close to the breadline are suffering. But I'm not too bad. But I mean, who knows what's going to happen?
Well, I guess you probably epitomize the bumper sticker. It's all life after all,
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think it's people definitely take a real pause and stop and reassess what life's all about. It's not been this ridiculous kind of rat race for material, gain and who's got the best car and blah blah blah, and the Kardashians and all this bullshit. It's about quality of life and spending time with your family, and I think that's ultimately what we've lost in the past 40 years, really, ever since life sort of starts speeding up. And if you look at humanity, way before all this popular culture absorbed us all, and TV and soaps and internet fame and all this other stuff, if you look at what actually mattered, and people made music regardless, folk music or whatever, or folk art, and spending time with your family and experiencing each other rather than looking externally for your entertainment. We're so fixated on getting our dopamine hits from Instagram likes or watching some TV Netflix show or whatever, and you actually have to focus in on why you're with that person you're in love with, and you have a family or whatever, and maybe people are taking more time to appreciate that now. I mean, that's the optimistic way of looking at it anyway. I'm sure somebody will correct me, but...
No, I agree. I think everything you've said has been 100% spot on. I think we've spiraled in a way that that's inherently against our humanity and who we are, and we spend all of this time in the media talking about all these things. We're family first and all these things. But really, at the end of the day, when you boil down a lot of people's lives, a lot of it's lip service. A lot of it's not actually being done. I saw an interview with 60 Minutes last night with Wynton Marsalis, and he was in front of Jazz at Lincoln Center, and it was empty. And the interviewer asked him, because he lost his father, Ellis, a couple weeks ago. He said, what would Ellis tell you right now? And he said, he would look at me and say, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Not... what are you going to say or how are you going to perceive this? What are you going to do? And that's the thing. I think that's probably maybe a clarion call to humanity, a silver lining, so to speak, is what are you going to do? Because right now, I guess it's kind of like the poet Charles Bukowski said, one of my favorite quotes of all time, what matters the most is how well you walk through the fire. And we can all talk about how gallant everything is when things are good, but this is the time right now to shine. We're going to find out what humanity is all about, who these people are, and what the truth is. Whether it's Tom Hanks getting over the coronavirus, whether it's you talking to me right now about, hey, this is cool, or whoever, whatever walk of life, this is the time where we say, you know what? We're alive, and this is what we got to do to get to where we need to get for the next day.
Well, I find myself teetering on the brink of, always flipping between altruism and misanthrope, being a misanthrope, because you want to have the optimism in humanity is going to find the right way, but with the way things have been going the past few years, and especially, the age I'm at now, it's so hard not to be jaded and just, throw the baby out with the bathwater, and just think, fuck the human race. If we're going to destroy the planet, we're all going to, all going to die. So this is like a real kind of like, whether accident or design, it's put the brakes on, and suddenly we're seeing that we can make a difference. When soon as people selfishly know that they have to look after themselves and take time out, we can fix things. But it's been $1 short and a day late for so long, with this whole idea of like, hey, we've got to protect the environment. Oh no, we don't, because it's all a hoax from the Chinese. Or, let's stop consuming so much plastic and use up the world's resources. Yeah, that's fine, but you guys can do that, but I still want to have my piece of the pie. It's this whole kind of like selfishness as human race, which has been ultimately the most frustrating thing. So, for me, looking at this, it's like, I'm not a big consumer anyway. I don't go out and spend loads of money on crap that I don't need. I'm pretty, frugal with my lifestyle and my family. And when I look at the way things are being consumed elsewhere, and, I went to Bali a couple of years ago for the first time, and I was expecting to be this beautiful paradise, and it was, but it was choked with garbage and plastic and bottles and bags, and it was just so super depressing that we as a race, done this to our planet. The most most unspoiled paradises in the world are now spoiled. So again, if we're going to start trying to rebuild things and fix things, I think if this is a sign of what's happening for the future generations, then maybe it's not such a bad thing. But again, cheap tourism, flying around on airplanes and cruise ships all around the world isn't helping the planet, is it? So I don't know. It's a tricky one. You don't want to live in a police state and fascism and be told that you can't leave your country. But that's kind of what's happening to Britain anyway, with having left the EU. Having to pay for visas and stuff to go places. So, I'm lucky. Like I said, I'm lucky. I live in what I consider the most beautiful place in the world. I live on a beach on an island off the south coast of Britain, and for 6 months of the year, it's the most beautiful place on earth. The weather's perfect. It's only maybe the winters, but again, you suffer those, and then you appreciate the summer a lot more. So, again, it's the age I've got to now. If I was 20, I'd be very frustrated because I'd feel like I hadn't got to where I wanted to get. But as I say, I'm my 15th, I think my 14th or 15th album this year. So it's a nice feeling to not have to worry about proving myself or feeling that I have to go out and make a mark on anything. I've proved to myself, done what I wanted to do. So, my focus now is my family and personal well-being. So
I like it, and you know what's interesting about all of this is that one way or another, karma will win, and one way or another, we're all going to have to understand that we're totally not in control of this whole thing.
No.
Everything.
Well, this is another thing. The trouble is, we're fed all this stuff like we have like some kind of divine kind of powers over it, and we're force-fed all this fearful news every day. Whether it's Fox or Sky or whatever, BBC, it's always telling us that we can't do this, or this is terrible, and this politician, it's tribalism at its finest. What side of the fence are you on? You're blue or red, or you're left or right, and it's like, well, what happens to just actually not we haven't got fucking say in this. Let's face it, it's a thin veneer of civilization over what people consider to be freedom of a democracy, and it's bullshit, So like, I don't want to know. I don't care. I voted in the last election. My party didn't get in, and so I think, well, why am I bothering? Why am I investing so much of my energy and my time and getting stressed out and upset about people like that don't want to vote for their own self-interest? It's like, Bernie dropping out of the thing. So it's a super depressing thing, but I don't blame him. Like, why should you care if you've spent your entire life and you're an old man and still people have not listened to you, even when there's a a massive pandemic, and they still don't want free healthcare, then leave them to it.
Right.
It's the time, it's the time just to focus in on yourself. And I can't make decisions which are going to affect globally, but I can make decisions and help out people in my local community and people that my friends and my family, and look after them. The way things have gone in Britain the past 10 years with austerity is everyone's piss poor and no one's doing well. And how much you try and manipulate the statistics or lie to the press about how good the country is BS, because I see more homeless people than ever before, which suddenly, miraculously, they've managed to fix the homeless problem because of this pandemic. So everyone's suddenly been housed in the UK, which was amazing, because apparently it wasn't the funds to do it before, but within 2 days, there's no homeless on the streets. But then, we've got single mums and stuff like that. We have a place in town called the Baby Box, where we have to donate for the local mothers that don't have enough money to feed their children. So it's like, this is one of the most richest countries in the world. You see what I'm saying?
Oh.
So it's like there's some big con job that's going on. I can't be getting involved with things on a national or global, let alone national, let alone global level. But I can locally make a difference, and that's what I've been doing. So again, it's I think that might be the one thing that comes out of all of this at the end, is that people start not giving a shit about what's going on in the rest of the world anymore, and start focusing on what's happening in their community, in their neighborhood, and make sure that they have the people around them. There isn't such a disparity of wealth or whatever, or people start looking out for each other. Because I think we've, for whatever philosophy teachings we've been going down with, you want to quote Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged or whoever, this whole cult of the self, is nonsense, because as humans, for thousands and thousands of years, we've existed as communities, and there is such a thing as society, and it's looking after the people within your nearest vicinity, and that's all you can do, But anyway, I'm ranting.
No, this is why I'm doing this, Greg. I'm calling because I want to talk. I want to get it out. I think there's a therapeutic catharticism that goes into this process, and you're 100% right, because about a week ago I hit that point when Bernie dropped out, because I personally voted for him in the primaries about a week before all of this happened, and I support him. But this is the thing. I'm at a point right now, too, where I'm starting to feel that thing where it's like, does it really matter at the end of the day? Because really, both sides of the line have controlling interests, and whether or not we support the products from China to come over, and we want to put a stranglehold, and we want to do it in America, but we're not doing it in America because we don't have the face masks and the ventilators and the scrubs for every single patient that these doctors are seeing in New York to do it on every occasion. They have to reuse all of it. So it's a supply and demand. So we're standing up for what we want to do here in America, but we've done so many things internationally to get in the way of it. And it's like, what side's going to be better at this? I mean, all of us right now are in a land of, well, if Obama was in here, because we had SARS and we had other things that were pandemic, possibly, and they didn't happen. And now we're like, well, what's going on now? But this is the thing that's different about this. This isn't something, those other things would have hit America, not the world. This is hitting the world. This thing right now is something that's just a grand equalizer for the entire planet. So there's a lot of things about this that are different but similar, and history is a carousel. We always go around, but no, I'm glad that you've opened up, and I just kind of want to touch on your music. You have a new album coming out, Symphonie Pacifique, and I just want to know, you have such an interesting meld of so many genres that go into what you produce. Talk to me about this album and kind of how you've arrived at this artistic sound.
It'll sound ridiculous, but the whole concept came from a painting, which is the cover art, which I have a friend who's, I think she's in San Diego now. She's a painter. She painted the Mage album art, and she posted on her Instagram or Facebook, I forget now, this painting, Symphonie Pacifique by Henri Valenci, who's I think he's Algerian French painter, and he painted it in like either late 50s, early 60s. I can't remember the exact date now, but it was such an incredible, evocative piece of music, and I really got the inspiration from the painting for the sound of the album. I could hear the sound in my head of what the album was going to sound like just from looking at this painting. And I got in the musicians that, well, you know, you want people to play on the album to fulfill your vision, but you also you're bringing them. They're not just colors on your palette, but they're you know, they bring shape to the composition. So I came in with some ideas, some riffs, some fully formed ideas, and some things I spontaneously came up with on the session. And the instrumentation started taking shape, and I could see the painting. It was like a sketch at first, and I started filling it out with the colors and the sounds and the way it's produced. So we've got pedal steel in there. So you got the you know, that sort of Pacific sound, you know, this the Hawaiian guitar almost, you know, with the pedal steel guitar in there, and just the different approaches to the whole thing took a shape. And I suddenly realized if I'm doing a Symphonie Pacifique, then it's like a symphony about all the Pacific Islands, and you know, it stretches up from, say, Japan down through you know, Hawaii down to Tahiti and stuff like that. So, you know, there's track titles like Point Venus, which is a lighthouse in Tahiti, and After the Storm, which is like, you know, like a storm in the Pacific. You know, it's like, you imagine, and there's another track called Island Life. So it's like you get the sense from the painting and the music that you're transported. You know, it's a symphony about the Pacific Ocean. But obviously the French title is the title of the painting. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been that pretentious. I would have just called it, you know, Pacific Symphony or something instead of Symphonie Pacifique. But you know, it is what it is. I'm really happy. It's my first double album I've ever had the opportunity to make, and Strut Records have really, you know, really given me a fantastic budget and lots of help, and really pulled out all the stops. So it's a really quality piece of music, you know, quality album.
You know, you've covered so much that I was going to ask, and so much that's kind of more ever-present, which is wonderful. But I do have one more question before we leave, and I want to know this.
Sure.
Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, and your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
I don't think you ever really know that. You know, it's foolish to believe that you are what the press say you are, and it's foolish to believe that you are any one person, because you are many people in the eyes of whoever's, you know, experienced you. I'm sure many people think I'm a complete arsehole, but to people I love, I think that's the most important thing, you know. And I think my music speaks for me, really. I think that's my most honest voice. So, you know, listen to the records, and I think that gives a pretty clear indication of who I am.
I agree. Man, Greg, thank you for opening up. Thank you for your perspective. This has been refreshing, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good talking to you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in London, America, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Greg for his time, cool, and energy. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.